Hello everyone, good afternoon. This is Jansi here. Welcome you all to the workshop for writing an effective personal statement. As you guys all know, the importance of personal statement while applying for an international education. So this is emphasizing the same and to make you know that why a personal statement is required and how it should be. So here we have Mr. Zach McDonald with us, who is the International Education Consultant for UWE Bristol, to guide you further with the personal statement making. So hope this whole session will be useful to you and helpful for you for your further application. Over to you, Zach.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, hi everybody out there. Happy to be here today. So let's just jump right in to our presentation here. Now, I like to start this with a pop quiz. And this is just to check what everyone currently knows or thinks about personal statements. And we'll go through it pretty quickly, and I will be clarifying on each point as we go. So the first question I have is simply, what is the purpose of a personal statement? Because this is not always clear to everybody. Anyone who has a thought on this, you can see options A, B, C, and D. And please just drop into the chat box, if you can, which you think is correct. And I'll tell you the answer in just a few moments, once a couple people have tried choosing one of these options. Okay, I see a B in there and an A. Okay, lots of B's and A's coming through. Okay, so it seems tied between B and A with more B's than A's. That's fine. So correct, it is B. The main purpose of the personal statement is to show your chosen university why you'll make a great student there. All right, everything else is secondary to that. So very good to all of you who chose B. Very nice. Okay, I can see the straight list of B's. Excellent. All right, so similarly to that, what should the main focus of a personal statement be? We know its purpose, but when writing it, what should the student's main focus be? Just as before, you can drop your answer into the chat. Okay, Shalu says D, Nisha says B. Okay, I can hear lots of people thinking. More B's. A lot of B's. Okay, Amita says B. Okay. All right, Harsh says B. Okay, we have a lot of B's. In fact, the answer is D. The main focus of a personal statement is explaining how your experiences have shaped your academic interests and goals. And this is where we can see a really common misunderstanding about personal statements. Personal statements are all about the student expressing something about themselves to kind of show their journey and their personal story that led them towards that course of study that they're going for. How much they know about the courses they want to study, well, that's something that you can kind of find by Googling, right? The main thing that the selection committees are looking for is to find out about that student. So that's going to be the main thing we're going to be looking at today in the details of this workshop. But we'll have some more questions first. Thanks to everybody who took a try at that. Okay, which do you think should not be part of a personal statement? Have a quick read of those. Which one should not be a part of a personal statement? Shivani says B, Anish says B. Nisha says B. Okay, all kinds of B's. Excellent, that is correct. Well done. A list of your references that the university can contact is not part of your personal statement. There might be somewhere else for that in your overall university application, but it's not something that you're going to include in the actual personal statement that you're writing. Well done, everyone. Part 2, which do you think should not be part of a personal statement? So we have one more here. Okay, I'm seeing some B's and A's. A lot of A's. Great. Okay, fantastic, everybody. Exactly. Flowery language to show your vocabulary knowledge. This is separate from what we're really trying to get at in the personal statement, which is information about the student or the candidate. Flowery language does not need to be part of that. Just as an example here, we have some flowery language and some plain, simple English. In a personal statement, we want to encourage students to write in plain, simple English. As you can see here in the flowery language section, it says, "It was a great honor to be hired as an intern at TRU's prestigious headquarters. Having the opportunity to work there for 6 amazing months provided me with invaluable experience in data management." All right, the issue here is there's so many adjectives. It's going overboard. In fact, a personal statement is not even that long based on the requirements. So we don't want to waste space by throwing in too many flowery words. Instead, let's look at a plain, simple example here. I worked as an intern at TRU Corporation's headquarters for 6 months, gaining valuable experience in data management. All right, that's straightforward. It tells your experience. It's grammatically correct. That's what we want to go for. And we want to encourage students to hone their writing down into a more direct way like that. Okay, that's great for all of you who got that correct. Just a couple more questions before we get into the details. What is a draft in terms of writing? I bet everyone's going to know this one. Okay, I'm seeing lots of C's and an A. Mostly C's are coming through. Great. Okay, to all those who chose C, correct. A draft is a version of a piece of writing you're working on. In other words, a work in progress. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because something we always want to encourage students to do is to draft and redraft. A good personal statement will probably require multiple drafts. And it's okay if the first draft is a complete mess. It doesn't have to look good at all. And in fact, the student should expect it. For the first draft, we want them to write as much as possible about themselves. They should brainstorm. They can have a big wall of text with just words and no paragraphs. They will use all that information later to shape that into their personal statement. But when they write that first draft, what they really need is to get as much content onto the page as they can. And then they can pick and choose from that to craft that into a powerful personal statement. So we want to convey to them that they don't have to get it perfect the first time. A mistake that a lot of people make when they're writing is they think that when they first write it, it all has to be perfect. It can look terrible at first and then be shaped into something perfect later. So this is the key to good writing in general, not just for personal statements, but essays, stories, everything. So just as I mentioned, don't get discouraged if many drafts need to be done. That does not mean you're doing anything wrong. You're doing something right. And as everyone knows, the personal statement is one of the most important documents that you have in your university application. So it's worth it to keep working on it and making new drafts until it's the best one that you can make. Okay, last quiz question. How many paragraphs should a personal statement have? What does everyone think? Shalu says D. Harsh says D. Tarushi says D. Okay, lots of D's coming through. Fantastic, everyone. Correct. There is no rule. So there's no rule on how many paragraphs you need to have. And in fact, there's very few rules on any formula at all for personal statements. And this leads us to another mistake that is very common. Sometimes people think that there's a certain template or formula that must be followed. There's not. Okay. And so that's something I want to get across to you today when we talk about the content. So first, the nitty-gritty, the details here. We are focusing on Ucas personal statements, and Ucas is the Universities and College Administration Services of the UK. So anyone applying to a UK university is essentially submitting their personal statement to Ucas, and it goes through them. So we have to follow their guidelines. So Ucas personal statements must be a maximum of 4,000 characters long. And those characters include letters, numbers, spaces, punctuation, and carriage returns. A carriage return is when you hit the enter key and drop down a space. So maximum 4,000 characters, or a maximum of 47 lines, whichever comes first. So you're probably wondering, what on earth does 4,000 characters look like? Well, it's roughly 650 to 850 words, but it all depends on how long the words are, of course. This is something that is very difficult for you to check on Microsoft Word when you're writing. However, it's easy to check using an online counter. So Ucas itself, their website, you can access counters on it. And a really easy one to use is charactercounter.com/Ucas. And I'll show you what it looks like. Here is a personal statement that has been fed into charactercounter.com. And you can see here, it tells you immediately how many characters you have so far and how many lines it is. So students can write their drafts on Microsoft Word and then just copy and paste them into charactercounter.com or another online character counting software, and that will tell them where they're at. So we don't want to go over 4,000 characters or over 47 lines. So this will make it quite easy for them to check. Yeah, I see someone in the comments, we have but keep it at a minimum. Not sure exactly what that's referring to, but I will say, if you're talking about this, your personal statement does not need to be 4,000 characters. It can be shorter than that. 4,000 is just the maximum. All right, so it doesn't have to be super long. It just has to be powerful with its content. So of course, the big question is, what should you write? So as I mentioned before, there's no strict formula for composing a personal statement, but let's focus on 5 key components when we start writing. The first one is excitement. What makes you, or the student, excited about the course you intend to study? Inspiration. What inspired you to pursue that field of study? Activity. What have you done in pursuit of this interest? What activities did you do in pursuit of it? Skills. What transferable skills do you possess? And how are they related to the course? And uniquely you. What are you into and what makes you stand out? So these are the 5 key components that we want students to write about in their personal statement. So let's look at each of them in detail so it's very clear what I'm talking about. Before we do that, the golden rule is, as you write, you're going to want all of your statements to be positive. Okay, so avoid negative statements like, my mathematical ability isn't good enough for me to go into mechanical engineering, so I've decided to pursue the arts instead. What this does is it makes it look like the arts, your intended field of study, is your second choice. So this is sort of a negative statement. We want everything to be very positive and proactive sounding. So let's check out how to do that. So the first component I mentioned was excitement. You're going to want students to express excitement, enthusiasm, fascination, positivity for their intended studies. In general, they should be thinking about, where does this interest or excitement come from? And the content that they write down for here will later be shaped into their opening paragraph. So just to show you what we mean by that, here's an authentic personal statement opener from a successful personal statement that was part of a real application. Creativity is what drove me to pursue business and management. New business ideas fascinate me. The notion of running a business and the risk involved in business has excited me for years. All right, lots of great words in there. They're not being flowery. They're very carefully choosing which words they use to show their excitement, and without using exclamation marks. They're just using the language itself to show their interest. So we have pursue, fascinate, has excited me for years. This is their opening paragraph, and they're immediately showing what sparked their interest. So creativity, right? And they say that they are fascinated by business ideas. They explain why a bit. They say the risk involved in business has excited me for years. Okay, so they're showing their excitement, enthusiasm, and in general, where it comes from, all in just 2 sentences. And in fact, 2 sentences, 3 sentences, that's really all that the candidate needs in an opening paragraph. It doesn't have to be really long. It just has to sort of grab the selection committee's attention, right? And make them see, oh, wow, this student is excited about the idea of studying this course, right? And that's going to make them, you know, immediately start taking this student seriously. All right. Just to practice that a little bit, let me just clear those. Here's another opening paragraph from a real personal statement. And just in the chat box, maybe everyone could just try writing some of the words that this student used to show their excitement, enthusiasm, or fascination. How did they convey that? So if you'd like, just drop a couple words into the chat box, just so I can see if you can see how they conveyed this excitement and interest. Great. Okay, we have intrigued. Absolutely, intrigued. High interest level. Yep, that one's very clear. Great. Okay, so lots of us can see this here. Yeah. Good, everybody. So yeah, intrigued, high interest level, strong aptitude. Anish, very good. Strong aptitude. Yeah. Using this kind of language, they're showing their interest. All right, and it's very clear. Let's take a look at another one. This is a separate opening paragraph for a different personal statement. Okay, how about this one? How did they convey their interest? Great. Fascinated, passion. Excellent. Yep, interested, fascinated, passion. Great. All right, I think everyone's very good at this. So I've always been interested in business as well as being fascinated by other languages. My passion for the subject increased. All right, this sounds very authentic and genuine. This student, immediately we can see they're not following a formula or a template. This is really something that's coming from their mind and from them as an individual. So immediately the administrators or whoever is reading the personal statement is able to see that this is a genuine thought. It's a genuine interest from an individual. And that's what we're looking for. We want to put the personal in personal statement. We don't want any two personal statements to look similar, really. Great. Thanks for participating, everybody there. All right. So after our initial excitement, we go on to inspiration. So this is where we take a step back and start talking about where it all began. So was there a series of experiences that progressed the students' interest in that subject? Or was there a single experience that made them realize what they wanted to pursue? So this could be an article or a book that they read, a lecture that they attended, people they have encountered, a trip they took, a particular life event. It could be anything. You know, for example, they might have taken a vacation to another country and they might have seen some kind of architecture that inspired them. And they thought, I want to go into architecture, you know, or engineering. It can be something like that. This is where we essentially start telling the story of ourselves. The student is telling a story about where they got their interest in the very beginning. It might have been something that happened when they were a child, or it could have been something that happened 6 months ago before the application. The timing doesn't really matter. The important thing is to show that they have this genuine interest. They're not just saying it. They're not just going to study this course because, you know, someone said you need to go to university, find something to study. We don't want to convey that kind of idea. For an effective personal statement, we want to tell a little bit of a story to show that this is something that is important to you, that you want to study, you have that passion, and here's where it began. This is like the evidence, you know, to show that you had a beginning point to this interest. So when you're having students thinking about their personal statement, this is where they're going to be brainstorming. We want them writing down everything that happened that they can remember that led them towards this application and the idea of studying this course. And the more ideas they have, the more content they have to choose from later when they make their next draft. So let's encourage students to write like that. Okay, what were all their inspirations for wanting to study this particular course? Okay, I'm not going to have all of you try it out. This is something I would normally have students do themselves, but this is what you can ask students to do. All right. They should consider the course that they want to study and then think back as far as they can to what first inspired them about that topic. And they should ask themselves, was there just one thing or was it a series of experiences? For example, in a series of experiences, perhaps they read a book and the book made them really interested about some subject. It inspired them. Then they went to a lecture to learn more about it. They got even more excited, right? Then they started to watch YouTube videos every night to learn more and more. This is a great path of inspiration. And it connects very closely to activity. So the student had their initial inspiration, and now we ask, what did you follow it up with? What have you done, actual activity and action, that demonstrates your continuous interest in the subject? What shows that you tried to learn more or get further involved? So examples of this could be work experience, volunteer experience, their current courses or courses they've taken in the past, outside reading, teams or communities they've joined, their hobbies, online research. In fact, it doesn't have to be anything extraordinary or amazing. It really could be they just watch a lot of YouTube videos about this subject, right? Or they read a lot of books about it, or it connects with their hobby somehow. So, but the main thing we want the students to be thinking about here is, what have they really done in their life so far that they can talk about that shows that they really have this genuine interest in this topic. So that's going to have an important place in the story that they're telling about themselves in the personal statement. So just like with inspirations, get students brainstorming about this as well. Have them think about all the activities that they've done that are even a little bit connected with this field of study or course they want to do. And later, they might not actually use all of those ideas in their personal statement, but as I said before, they're going to have more to choose from. So just get them brainstorming. What are all the activities you do connected with this? All right, and then we have skills, right? We want to represent our skills. So the students should think about what transferable skills they possess. Now, it's kind of human nature, I think, for most people to be maybe modest or humble. They may think, I don't have any skills. I'm not good at anything. But we know that that's not true. So I would encourage students to ask their friends or their family or even their teachers for their thoughts, right? You know, they can ask their family, what do you think I'm good at? Right? And maybe their friends and family will see a skill in them that they may not realize they possess. So we want them brainstorming about this too. Just some examples of these: being a critical thinker, being a good public speaker, being multilingual, you know, proficient in multiple languages, being adept with computers. Maybe the student is just really good at using Microsoft Office, right? Well, not everybody in the world is good at that, right? So if you're skilled at making an Excel spreadsheet and you're planning to study something computer related, that might be a good start, right? Just to say that you've spent time building up skills with software, just as an example. And then we want them to think which of these skills are related to the course they want to study and how. And lastly, they should avoid skills that may suggest negative traits or tendencies. An example of this: I can make my brother do almost anything I say, so I feel I possess an ability to work in management. So, okay, that might be a skill, but it's kind of a negative one. It kind of makes them look bossy. I don't think most students need to worry about this kind of thing, but I just should add, try to have all positive, constructive skills. So not skills that may suggest something a little bit negative about your character. And so the fifth component is uniquely you. So this is sort of the fun part. What is unique and exciting about you? What makes you stand out? What have you done that you're proud of? Something that you may not think is interesting could be interesting to someone else. So to give an example of this, lots of young people like gaming, right? Games on the phone, games on the computer. They may think, well, all my friends like gaming and I like gaming. It's not special. It's not unique. However, the person reading their personal statement might not be a gamer. So they might think, oh, that's interesting. And look, he wants to go into computer science. So it's good that he has this background with gaming because this is involving interaction with computers, right? Or maybe that student wants to go into actual game design, for example. And in that case, having a background in gaming is going to make them look very good for that course. So I just give this as an example of, it might be something that seems mundane or common, but if it's something that they feel is interesting about them, then they should just put it down. So that could also be traveling, swimming, coding, mountain biking, making home movies, playing chess. The sky is really the limit to this. And something I'm going to mention in a moment is this part is not just about the course, because this is going to come in handy in your last paragraph, because you may be able to relate some of these things to university life itself. So for example, perhaps the student really loves playing football. He plays it every day and he's quite good at it. He can mention that in the last paragraph of his personal statement and then say, so I'm really looking forward to joining the university football club. Or I would love to check out some football teams that are at the university. And even though that's not related to courses or even academics, it shows that they will probably be a good fit for university life. Because, of course, being a university student is not just about studying a course, but it's also a certain lifestyle. Universities have clubs and teams and organizations and all kinds of different events. And if the student can tell something special about themselves, that will later show that they will find an interesting place to contribute to teams or organizations at university, then it's just going to show that they'll make a good fit for university life, that they're a good candidate to be a university student in general. And especially if they can associate that with some club or team that exists at that university, right? So if they say, oh, I heard that there's a great football club at UWE Bristol, and I love playing football, so I really look forward to checking it out and making new friends there. That's a great thing to add, you know, if possible. It's very positive and shows that you know a little bit about the university you're going to. So keeping these 5 components in mind, as I said before, we want to encourage students to sit down and brainstorm. And at first, they should not worry about paragraphs, grammar, punctuation, any of that yet. They should just write everything that comes into their mind based on these components that I shared with you. So they should consider each component and just write as much as possible. That's going to give them a big body of information to draw from. So what you see here on the left-hand side of your screen is a big wall of text. It's okay if it looks like that, right? This shows that they've just been thinking hard and getting as many ideas out as possible. Once they have all that information on their screen, then they're going to start shaping it into paragraphs. So let's talk about paragraphs. As we talked about during the quiz at the beginning, there is no formula or rule about how many paragraphs to have. But here's a recommendation now that the brainstorming is done. For your first paragraph, this is your enthusiastic opener that we talked about, where you express your excitement about the course and where it comes from. So we looked at some examples already of those. It really just needs to be 2 or 3 sentences. It's okay if it's longer. Like I said, there's no rule, but it doesn't need to be. You can show your excitement and enthusiasm in a couple sentences. After that comes the body paragraphs. So this is the bulk of the personal statement, the main part. The exact number of paragraphs you use is going to be different for every student. It'll be the result of subsequent draft and simply what reads best. How many paragraphs do they need to convey the information that they have brainstormed about? That's what it comes down to. But these body paragraphs in general are where they're going to talk about their inspiration, their related activities, and the relevant skills they've acquired. So those 3 components are going to come into the body of the personal statement. And then we'll have a final paragraph, and that's where they will talk about those things that are uniquely you or uniquely them, right? What makes them personally a fit for the course or university life. And you can see I have an example here. A moment ago, I talked about football. You could say this about cricket too. If that student is a local cricket champ in their neighborhood or in their town, then it would be a great idea for them to mention that they would like to join the university cricket club. All right, so this will show that they already have this interest, this passion, right? It's not related to academics, but it can be related to university life. And that shows that on top of academics, they're going to be a good member of that university, which universities want to see, right? They want happy participating students there. So now that we talked about some things to do, let's talk about things to avoid. One is verbal diarrhea. It sounds kind of gross, but verbal diarrhea is when you're just kind of spewing information and details all over the place that are not connected to the main point of your essay. So you want to keep your writing focused and relevant, and don't go off topic with extraneous detail. So we know what the purpose is of our personal statement. We know what our goal is, what we're trying to do, and everything we write should contribute to that. So essentially, we're telling that story about ourselves and about who we are and everything that makes us a good candidate to be studying that course. Of course, we want to avoid arrogance. So we want students to talk about their achievements and their skills, things that they're good at, but we don't want them to write about it in a way that makes them sound like they're showing off or bragging. It's okay just to simply list the achievements. Those achievements will speak for themselves. So they don't need to, they can say that they won an award, but they don't need to say, and that made me the best out of 2,000 different people. They don't need to necessarily add detail like that. All right, that makes it sound kind of like they're showing off. Although this is not a big point, this is just a small thing to consider. And this is a little bit of a personal thing for me. I would avoid exclamation marks. Try to express your excitement and positivity through word choice, not exclamation marks. In a professional document like this, I think exclamation marks take away some of the professional look of it. And we want to focus on using words to convey excitement rather than exclamation marks in this kind of a submission. Okay, and of course we have to talk about this big one, plagiarism. So I'm just going to explain a little bit about this. So all personal statements submitted through Ucas, through their system, they're scanned through some software. It's called Copycatch. And if when it's scanned, it's discovered that that personal statement has 10% or more similarity to any other personal statement submitted to Ucas in the past, it's going to be flagged. Now, probably when it's flagged, someone will actually read it, like they'll have a human look at it to check it against the other one. But of course, if plagiarism is indeed in that essay, it's probably going to be denied. The application will probably be denied, or worse, depending on, if the entire thing is plagiarized. And the reason that they can do that is because every personal statement submitted to Ucas is saved in their archives. And so anytime a new personal statement is submitted, that personal statement is scanned and compared to all of those that were submitted in the past. So if we give a formula or a template to follow to students, and we use that 1 year, well, then the next month or the next year, if other students are following it, they're all going to get flagged because they're using, the same paragraphs or something as a student from the past. That's why it's so important to have this genuine, personalized personal statement. And that's why we have these 5 components that are guaranteed to ensure that the student is talking completely about themselves as an individual. When they write like that, it's impossible for it to be flagged for plagiarism, right? But if they're following a template and just kind of filling in the blanks, then all of those things that are similar or the same as previous personal statements are going to get flagged in the system and probably caught for plagiarism. So as long as the students are talking genuinely about themselves, then we don't have anything to worry about with this. So a big don't and a big do, just to kind of sum everything up. Don't just talk about how great the university you're applying to is, or state a bunch of positive facts about it, such as student satisfaction rates, awards it has won, how big the library is. The selection committee is not interested in this, right? They know what the university is like, so they don't need this kind of information. They want to know about that student personally. So that's the big do. Remember that a personal statement is all about you, the applicant. The selection committee doesn't know you yet at all. They want to hear about how your experiences have shaped your academic interests and goals. And they want to know why you will be a great student to study at their university. That's the big thing to keep in mind. And if students write with that in mind, they're going to have a great, genuine, effective personal statement. And one more tip just for improving your writing ability for personal statements that I would recommend to students is to read examples of personal statements that other students have written in the past. So there's websites where you can do this. You can see a couple at the bottom. Studential.com has thousands of Ucas personal statements. They have been submitted from all kinds of people around the world. They submit them to the website. Sometimes they leave a note to say whether that personal statement was effective, and other people can also rate them. So I would recommend reading the best rated examples of personal statements. And just a note, because when you read personal statements online, like I said, they could have come from anywhere, uploaded by anyone, right? So you may find that some of them are actually too long for UCAS guidelines. In that case, at least focus on the good aspects of the content. The more that students read examples of personal statements, especially highly rated or effective ones, the more ideas they're going to get for their own. Not ideas to copy, but ideas about structure, how to show excitement, how to tell their personal story, how to represent themselves. They're going to just to get more and more ideas kind of sinking into their minds the more that they read. And that's a general rule for writing in general. The more you read, the better you'll write. And this is that website, Studential.com, if anyone wants to visit it sometime. The personal statements are all divided by field of study. So this is business and management here. And you can see they have ratings. So you can read some of the best ones. It was what I would recommend, just to get an idea of what some successful statements look like. Okay, now that we've gone through that, we can turn it over to some Q&A. And I'll try to answer your questions. Hopefully I can. And if you want me also to go back and cover anything that we've just talked about again, no problem. We can go back and talk about any of that in detail once more.
We would like to thank you, Zach, for this fantastic session. I believe not only everybody attending, but even we have got a lot of clarity on the personal statements now. We know exactly, now we know exactly what, a student should be mentioning in that. And, I believe even the agents who are attending, they will also know how and what they need to really ask the students and help the students to put down in their personal statements. Okay. It was very clear, very nice, very well explained. So we are just waiting for some, if they have any doubts, any queries, which I doubt they will. But yeah. So anyway, let's wait and watch.
Sure.
Yes, within the team, anyone, if you all have any doubts, queries for Zach, well, I'm really clear, so. Well,
Okay.
we did get a message from someone saying you have been crystal clear. Thanks. It was really helpful.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm glad it was clear.
Yes, Jancy.
Yeah, that was pretty clear. Like, going through everything, much informative, what should be included and not included. It was pretty clear. So is the reason I think the most questions are not there. It's all already been answered.
Okay, very good. I see someone asked, is it possible to share the presentation with us? Yes, I have a shortened version of this that I can share that has the key components where we talked about those components and the descriptions. So I can share that if you'd like. Maybe it'd be best for me to share it with Ranjita or Jancy, perhaps. Is it possible if I sent you that a PowerPoint?
Perfect, Zach. Yes, it's perfect. You can just send it to us and we will share it with everyone.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to send you the basic version where it's just kind of the concentrated key information from this one. And okay.
All right. So we do have a question here. Any further tips specific to master's degrees and MBA applications, specifically considering work experience is required?
Well, in that case, since you have to mention work experience, where we talked about that activities component, I think because you do have limited space on your, just that 4,000 character limit, I think for activities, instead of talking about all those lead up activities that students going for a bachelor's would write, that's where they can explain their work experience. So after they've talked about, you know, I've acquired my bachelor's already, and then here's a paragraph or two about all the work I've been doing. And then hopefully that will also lead into skills, because once they talk about that work they've been doing, they should also mention the skills that they've acquired. So rather than just saying, here's the job I did and here's the position I did, they should say what they learned, and hopefully also why that inspired them to move on to a master's degree. And I know that when I'm meeting students that are going for their master's degrees, I often ask them that question. If you're working now, why did you decide to get this master's degree? And a lot of them will mention, I want to go up to the next level of my job and I need to acquire management knowledge, management skills, right? Or I need to learn more about IT to get into this higher position. And I think that's a great thing to mention. So they're still telling the story about what led them towards applying for that master's degree.
Great, Zach. Thank you so much for that. And we have another word of appreciation here. Thank you so much. As we know, an SOP is so important. You made it really interesting and an easy task.
Oh, thank you, Toshi.
Another question here. Can a PG student mention any special experience of school life?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, one main thing that I want to convey here is that there really is so few rules. Once we get into the realm of making sure that students are talking about themselves, absolutely something from school life, home life, something they did on a holiday, this is all fine. Yeah, absolutely. So if there was that special experience, that might be part of their inspiration, or it may have been a revelation for them, right? Perhaps they did in their science class, they did some experiment, right? And it just gave them a revelation like, wow, this is what I want to focus on. Or they learned some skill that they then applied to kind of increase their knowledge about some, you know, further advancement of what they're doing. So in my opinion, absolutely fine. I don't think any selection committee would read that and think, oh, school life. They just want to see that's the story of that student and what led them up to this application. So if they feel that's relevant, then go for it.
That's great. Thank you so much, Zach. One more question. Can you please advise on the future goals to be written?
Future goals to be written. Oh, yeah. Oh, you mean writing about what you'd like to do in the future?
Yeah, what they like to do in the future.
Yeah, that's true. In this presentation, I didn't touch on that as a specific component, but there's absolutely no reason why that can't be an important part of your personal statement. It doesn't mean that that is what the committee is looking for. Like sometimes just, you know, studying a course because you're passionate about it is great. If you're studying it because you already have your eye ahead on a future career or future goal, as many people do, that's another paragraph you can add. Absolutely. And the reason why I wanted to convey that there's no set rule for the number of paragraphs is because I don't want anyone to feel limited. So if you're writing your body paragraphs and you've talked about the inspiration and the activities and the skills, there's no reason why you can't have your next paragraph and say, in the future, you know, I'm really looking forward to working in this kind of field and, you know, eventually going for my master's. Absolutely, you can have another paragraph. And that's why students shouldn't feel limited by how many paragraphs they can have, as many as they need to get their point across. But that's a really good question. I appreciate you asking it because it's not something that we talk about in this workshop. But yeah, absolutely discussing future goals is great if they have them, right? If they just want to learn for the sake of learning, which some students do, then they can stick to this for now. Or if they don't feel like they have a clear idea about the future, but absolutely they should not limit themselves. Yeah, definitely put another body paragraph in there to discuss future ambitions and goals. Thanks for your question.
Yes, we have just one quick one here. How many characters should a student give for the brief regarding why they're applying for the specific university? Any specific size, to just keep it to the minimum or keep it readable, not too big a story, how should it be?
If you want to talk about what, like something specific about that university, I would keep that to a minimum, because what will happen, I think, inevitably, if you make it too long, is the student is going to start writing about all the reasons why that university is great, right? Like, this university has a huge student satisfaction rate and this kind of thing. And that's what happens when we don't limit ourselves to that kind of component. And then, when people are reading that, the selection committee is going to have seen paragraphs like that many, many times, right? It's saying why this university is so great and things. If it's something very specific about just that course, like let's say, for example, UWE Bristol has a really great robotics lab. So if that student has explained their story of how they got interested in robotics and everything they've done leading up to that, and then if they want to have just a short paragraph to say that once I learned that UWE Bristol has one of the biggest robotics labs in the UK, I knew that this is the place that could support my ambition, right? And that only has to be one sentence or two sentences. So that's fine. It's just that don't go too far by going off on a tangent, which really often happens with students, is they'll start to write why they want to go to that university, but then they start talking about generic things about why they like that university and the reputation it has. And that's where it kind of loses its focus on them and what really appeals to them personally as an individual student wanting to study a certain course. So yes, keep it concise and direct, and make sure that reflects something personal about that student's ambitions.
Perfect. So I guess, I guess a personal statement is more about the student than actually about the university. So absolutely. It has to be only mainly about the student. It's basically to give a better picture about the student without meeting the student. So that's basically
absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of feedback that I've been hearing is that UWE in general just gets a lot of international personal statements that are about the school.
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to go completely in the other direction, because that's simply not what universities want to see. They want to know about the student.
About the kids. Yes, exactly. Perfect. I guess that's it. We don't have any more questions. Okay, do statements of purposes for visa application need to be different than those for the admission application?
Oh, you know what? That's something I'm not sure. I could probably try to give you an answer, but I don't want to give you any inaccurate information. My aspect here that I'm focusing on is just how to write this your personal statement.
Well, maybe I can answer that. Sure. It really doesn't have to be different, because it's on the basis of the personal statement that they give for the admission that they have secured the admission. So for the visa application, they really don't need to change any documents, because whatever change needs to be done, the university will make sure that the change is done there itself. And it's only the final thing that has to go for the visa application. So it's basically the same thing. No change needed there. All right, I guess that's it. Any more questions, guys? Anybody looking for any specific answers? Well, that's it, I guess. All right. So thank you so much, Zach, for taking out your time from your busy schedule. I know you're really busy, and giving us this really informative session. I'm sure it's going to help us a lot, and we're looking forward to really good personal statements in future for all the students, making life easier for the admission team as well.
Wonderful. Okay, absolutely, my pleasure. And thank you to everyone who came today for participating in the chat and everything. It was great hearing your answers and questions and thoughts. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you. Bye-bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys. Thank you so
Take care.
much.
Bye.
Have a
Have
great
a
day.
great evening.
Bye.